Hello and welcome to another edition of ProtoBalls Talk. I'm ProtoMet,
I'm Barry.
and today we are dealing with the Day of the Dead.
Yes, correct.
We've reached the end of this trilogy of films that wound up being more than 3 movies.
We
But not for this particular run.
we don't want to talk about that. So,
Maybe someday, but not right now.
so this is released in 1985. George Romero once again directing the film as usual. Produced by Richard Rubenstein, who also produced, or co-produced rather, Dawn of the Dead. And this is a different flavor of zombie film.
I would say that the first 2 films are mid-apocalyptic films. This is definitely a post-apocalyptic film.
Yeah. This is... Yeah.
Yeah.
And things have gone to hell since Dawn. Let's put it that way. And the film stars Laurie Cardle, Terry Alexander, Joseph Pilato, Jarlath Conroy, and Richard Liberty. A bunch of actors and actresses who are not really particularly well known for anything other than this movie. Joe Pilato, of course, he had a cameo in Dawn as like random cop.
And I actually did recognize him when he showed up, but I didn't immediately place him as being the main antagonist of this movie.
Talk about a promotion.
This is also the first of the Dead movies to actually have an antagonist.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, unless you consider
The general concept of zombies as an antagonist. But
I was gonna say, unless you consider Harry Cooper an antagonist, or the bikers antagonists.
I mean, yeah, they technically are antagonistic, but they're like ancillary to the overall plot of the other threat, which is not centralized to a single figure. And while, yes, this movie does still have the zombies, it is a far more secluded film.
Yeah, it's The Thing, but zombies. And instead of paranoia at the fact that one of your co-workers or cohorts might be a thing,
It's just everybody getting on each other's nerves sort of situation.
in the worst way possible. Which ends up having some rather explosive, not literally, but explosive results.
I would say that this is like what would happen if in Dawn of the Dead there were more people and they had been there for a lot longer.
Yeah. So initially, Romero did Night Riders and Creepshow after he did Dawn. And Night Riders is a very weird film. It is a medieval tale of like jousters on motorcycles. It's kind of weird, and
I mean, I've heard of weirder things on motorcycles.
yeah, like
Skeletons and card games.
yeah. And then
Speaking of, I'm actually going to be starting that within the next couple weeks.
yeah. And then he also made Creepshow, which also has a bit of history on its own. It was co-written by Stephen King. Very good anthology movie series.
Yeah, they wanted to make a TV show of it after I think the second movie had come out,
Yeah.
but they couldn't get the rights to the name, so they ended up retitling it to Tales from the Dark Side, which is a fantastic watch that I'm pretty confident I've recommended before.
And that is correct, yes. Which Richard Rubenstein also produced. So he had his hands in a lot of Romero pies, so to speak.
Everybody thinks of Tales from the Crypt as this amazing, groundbreaking horror anthology series, but Tales from the Dark Side got there first.
Yeah.
Although I will say that Creepshow was inspired by the original Tales from the Crypt comic book. So it kind of is full circle.
Yes.
Also, HBO had Tales from the Crypt, so they were able to do a lot more than Tales from the Dark Side could.
Mm-hmm. So, initially, Romero had written a script, and he initially wanted this to be like a 4-hour long epic. He wanted it to be Gone with the Wind, but zombies, so to speak. But that ended up not happening, and this ends up being the second shortest film of the original trilogy. Dawn is only slightly shorter, by like 5 or 6 minutes. Or not Dawn, but Night. Night ends up being shorter by about 5 or 6 minutes.
I was going to say, because you showed us the extended cut of Dawn, and even Zach was like...
Would you get over it? Jesus Christ.
Never.
So, instead of like a giant budget that he initially wanted, he ended up getting a fraction of that. He definitely got a bigger budget than Night or Dawn combined, but Day is generally considered the less well-remembered out of the three. And then, of course, Tom Savini returns to do special effects. And he actually has a pair of helpers or assistants in this movie, outside of his usual friend Tassos Stavrakis, who does have a role in this movie. They're also doing makeup for this movie is Greg Nicotero of The Walking Dead fame, and Howard Berger, who did the makeup and special effects for the Chronicles of Narnia series. So
total whiplash right there.
I know. I mean, he also did Walking Dead. He did a bunch of movies with Sam Raimi. Howard Berger has a long history. Greg Nicotero, fondly beloved in the special makeups department as an apprentice of Tom Savini, who himself, I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but Tom Savini himself, not necessarily an apprentice, but an acolyte of Lon Chaney Sr. I remember he mentioned something like he read the story or read the book about Lon Chaney Sr. and about how Chaney would do the special effects makeups himself for all of his movies, and he primarily did that because Lon Chaney Sr. had deaf parents, and that's why Lon Chaney was able to use his facial expressions so well in all of his movies. So
it's a shame some of them are lost.
A lot of them are lost.
So I would love to have seen some of the other ones, like London After Midnight.
Not to mention, unfortunately, Lon Chaney died, I believe it would have been 1929. He died just as sound in films was just happening, and we never got to see him in a sound picture. But we did get to see his son in a lot of films. Lon Chaney Jr., of course, well known as the Wolfman.
And infamously the son of Dracula.
We don't talk about that.
I will talk about how bad Lon Chaney is in that movie. It's an okay movie, but Lon Chaney is an absolute miscast in that film. But that's a topic for some other day. Perhaps.
Yeah. So, the movie begins, 7 years. This is what the plot is. It takes place 7 years after the events of Dawn, when things are already starting to fall apart. Everything has gone to hell. Like, we get a sort of dream sequence where our main character, Dr. Sarah Bowman, and we'll call her Sarah for now, just for so everyone's not confused. She is actually the only female character in this movie. The only female character in this movie. And she has this very strange dream where she's looking at a calendar on the wall that is set for October. And she goes to reach for it, and then a bunch of zombie hands come out of the wall.
Just burst through the bricks. in a very well effective effect.
And she is woken up, and she is in a helicopter. Where have we seen that before? People being...
Airwolf.
Got it. People being in helicopters. And this movie takes place in the Florida Everglades. It takes place, around St. Petersburg, Florida, sort of in that general region. And they touch down on a city, and we learn four of our characters. We learn, of course, Sarah Bowman. There's a soldier named Miguel Salazar, who is a private, radio operator Bill McDermott, and the helicopter pilot John. That's his name, John.
And Sarah and what's his name?
Miguel.
They're intimate with each other.
They're a thing.
They're an item that is actually a plot point in this movie.
Yes.
It isn't something that's you could just throw away.
And so Sarah orders John to touch down onto the ground, and John, of course, is just like, no, that's a terrible idea, but of course he acquiesces, because Sarah's technically the one in charge of this expedition. Not Miguel. Miguel is just a private. Sarah is a civilian scientist, but she has she has civilian overreach over the others. And so they touch down, and we get an iconic sound bit. If you've listened to Gorillaz, M1...
I absolutely love that version over the actual opening theme for this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mentioned that while we were watching it to VJ, and he absolutely agreed.
Yeah.
Like, it has a strong beginning, but I don't think that strength carries over for the rest of the theme.
It has a very strong opening. And a fun fact about that theme, so that music is actually 19 minutes long. The song is 19 minutes long, and it's called Day of the Dead. And that's what I think. It's either
that reminds me, there was a music piece in Dawn of the Dead that was also used at the beginning of, I want to say, Demon Days, which was...
The Dead Suite, that's what it's called. The Dead Suite. And the music was not done by Goblin. Instead, we get more of it's sort of a mix between calypso and electronica. And it's a very it's a weird mix. It kind of fits for the movie in that, what's the word for it? Where in a dissonant way. Where the music is, it's very jaunty and
borderline upbeat, but not quite.
Sort of equatorial, sort of like, oh, we're in the tropics. Like, it's a calypso electronica bit. You've got the steel drums here and there, and it's some cha-chas, the sand noise that they make.
I wanted to say maracas, but I don't think that's what you meant.
Yeah, not the maracas, but like the smaller ones that you hold in your hand.
Yeah, I don't... I mean, technically you hold maracas in your hand, but I get what you're trying to say, yes. And I don't know what...
It's very South Florida, like, Cuban tropical music.
Right.
Caribbean music, that's the word. It's very Caribbean-esque. And, of course, they don't find anyone. I mean, Miguel is calling out, seeing if anybody, can respond or is out there. And, of course, they don't find anybody. They do find a bunch of people, but
none of them are alive.
None of them exactly who they want. And there's a brilliant special effect that Tom Savini actually shows on the David Letterman show, if you remember this. He shows the first zombie that appears on screen, and this zombie is missing his lower jaw, and it's just his tongue, and it
looks like somebody may have taken a shot at the guy's face and missed the brain. It's an iconic look, and being able to watch it in on such a big screen allowed me to appreciate a lot of the effects work that went into it more than the smaller end images I'd seen in the past and the vague recollections I'd had. Because, like I said in the previous one of these, I had seen Day of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead. I hadn't seen Dawn, so I.
Would you agree? Just as a matter of fact, here, would you agree that Night and Dawn is better than Day?
Oh, absolutely.
And that is no disrespect intended to Day. It's kind of the lesser of the three films.
Right. It kind of earns third place kind of by default. It's not a bad movie, but you watch it and you can definitely understand why it's not as well regarded as the first two. Granted, the first two were absolutely revolutionary in the zombie genre.
And specifically a reason I think it doesn't get as much love or attention or even as high of ratings is because it's a very miserable film.
Yeah.
It's because everybody's in an underground cavern military base, sort of. It's a sort of makeshift underground bunker that also has science facilities and barracks for a military company. But it's dark, it's dank, it's moist, it's Florida in the middle of the summer, or actually like Florida in early fall, which means you'll get a lot of bad weather.
So yeah, when they actually return to this base, which I think is supposed to be maybe on an island or something.
It's on a more esoteric and isolated area.
I mean, it still has the undead roaming it. It's just not connected to the mainland.
You know what? It's probably in the Everglades itself. It's probably a base within the Everglades.
But once they get back, we the audience start to get a better understanding of what's going on, which is that a small military detachment has been assigned to overwatch or aid with a handful of scientists who are researching
a way to fix the problem, of which there is no cure.
Presumably. I mean, Sarah is dead set on finding a cure, but she's not exactly having any luck. Meanwhile, Dr. Frankenstein, as they call him, is...
Yeah.
He's conducting some pretty horrific experiments.
He's Dr. Logan. He has the... he has the sobriquet of Dr. Frankenstein given to him by the soldiers because he has a tendency to butcher a bunch of as it turns out, a bunch of the livestock, so to speak. And who are the livestock? It's some of the zombies that they've wrangled from underneath the bunker. Some who have potentially died from the base and have been shuttled into sort of a cavern area.
Kind of a reverse holding pen.
Yeah, so to speak. And as it happens, so the above ground footage, all shot in Florida. So all of the above ground stuff was shot in Florida. And true to Romero, in true Romero fashion, all of the underground scenes shot in Pennsylvania.
And that's unfortunately where most of the movie occurs. Like, they barely show the surface. It's all the tension that's building up between the soldiers and the scientists. And
what we do see on the surface is actually there are a bunch of graves that have been dug, some fresher than others. And as it turns out, the military commander has passed away. And that would be Major Cooper,
which leaves a far more hot-headed guy in charge.
A far more neurotic and sociopathic.
Like, even from his first introduction, you can tell that he is on his last ropes.
One of the scientists, I forget what his name is. There's only 3 scientists left, though. It's Sarah, Dr. Logan, and this one scientist who doesn't really do much for the film.
Not really, no.
And John. So it's the group is split up into 2 parties. There's the civilians and there's the military personnel. John and McDermott are actually two civilians that have been essentially drafted into the military service, but they are not part of the civilian crew either. And so they have their own little area outside the base in the caverns that they use because they are technically not part of either group.
And it is the nicest looking place in the whole thing because they were given admittedly quite a bit of free reign. I mean, to just kind of hang around because
John controls the helicopter, and so he's arguably the most important person on the base in terms of escape plans. And McDermott is in charge of the radio equipment, which means he's technically the second most important person on the base in terms of...
Not that he really feels like it, because they, at no point in this entire movie, ever made contact with the outside world.
It's very much presumed that the entire world is fucked. Everything is done. They can't... McDermott only has puny World War II equipment that he can use, and he can only reach out about 100 miles each way, if even that, on his puny radio. And when they used to talk to Washington, it was actually over the air, which means they had used...
like relays and stuff.
Yeah, they had used relays and over-the-air antennae to sort of send messages back and forth. And now that, everything on the mainland, which means it is an island in the Everglades, now that everything on the mainland is closed down, and McDermott, of course, also makes kind of a joke about that, where, and if you haven't heard, all the shopping malls are closed, which is a, wink and nod to Dawn. And the soldiers don't necessarily like that very much. And so there's a third side, which is John and Bill McDermott. The scientists are Dr. Logan, Sarah, and this third scientist, who I cannot remember the name of. And then there are about seven soldiers.
7 or 8 around there.
7 or 8 headed by Captain Rhodes, who is easily the biggest villain in all of the Dead series. By far. Even more than any character from Land. Because Land has a different set of rules going on there.
But yeah, he's the one who is the most closest to snapping.
Yeah, Dr. Ted, that's his name. And so of the soldiers, there's Captain Rhodes, who is the worst out of all of them. Steele, who is an older gentleman, and it kind of hints at that the military was kind of strapped for reinforces, so they kind of drafted a bunch of older people that wouldn't have necessarily been qualified, because Steele is an older, balding guy who's a private, and at his age, you would not expect that for a private. There's Rickles, and Rickles and Steele are friends. They're compadres, so to speak. There's
the gruesome twosome in a sort of sense.
Yes. And then Miguel, who is extremely neurotic and losing it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sarah has to hug him to try and calm him down, in order to stab him with a was it, morphine?
Yeah, with a sort of morphine. She kind of has to commit a
tranquilizer to get him to actually get some rest.
And then there's also Private Miller, Private Torres, and Private Johnson.
And they exist.
All three of them. Torres, of course, we'll get to Torres when we get to him, who is played by Tasso Stavrakis. He has probably the best scene in the entire movie. And it's the one,
I wouldn't say that's...
It's the best in the entire movie.
Well, maybe in terms of the effects, but in terms of satisfaction, I think there's another...
Well, of course, we'll get to that. But as far as just like...
I think I'm just going to spoil it, and I'm not going to spoil what happens. I'm going
Of
to
course,
spoil
of
the
course.
midpoint and say that we won't be talking about our favorite scenes at that point.
Yes.
Because
They're all at the end.
the best scenes in this movie are at the end of the movie.
The last 15 minutes of the movie are no spoilers for who dies, but has some of the best kills in the entire series. Like of night, of dawn, of day, of land, like a diary of survival. The six films.
I mean, the one I'm thinking of it became iconic even before I'd even seen the movie because I'd seen like a making of documentary that talked about it. Talked about the scene. And that just absolutely stuck in my mind. Just even knowing that it was faked.
It still makes you, kind of...
It was incredibly satisfying and the special effects were fantastic. Unfortunately, that's still a ways off.
Of course. So, and so Steele and Rickles, they kind of draft both Sarah and Miguel, but while John and Bill, because they just returned to the base, they also raised some pot. Major Cooper has just died. A lot has happened in this this seemingly intermediary scene. You know, Sarah doesn't want the helicopter fueled until nighttime.
Because she feels that if they did it during the day, it would attract the dead. And they don't want that attention.
Which doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, because they're already agitated. So, okay. I
mean, of all the characters in this movie, Sarah is the one who's doing her best to keep it together. Everybody else is doing significantly worse in that regard.
Sarah is the only one who's trying to work together with everyone. John and McDermott, they're kind of apathetic to the whole thing. They really don't care anymore.
Logan is nuts.
Putting it mildly.
And the soldiers are stressed out and oversexed.
and stir crazy. And Ted is there. The other scientist, Ted Fisher. He's kind of there. So, Rickles and Steele, and it's a very straightforward plot, actually. There's not a whole lot of nuance that kind of happens in this movie. It's pretty straightforward. Rickles and Steele, they draft Sarah and Miguel, and they go to grab some new specimens because...
For Dr. Logan.
Because as it happens, Logan has been butchering too many of them. Sarah is mad at the two soldiers
because they haven't been properly maintaining records of how many they've been taking out of the enclosure. Because they've only got a limited supply down there.
And we get a pair of throwaway lines that actually have... which are some of the nuance that is in this movie, where Steele is trying to attract the zombies to the pen area so they can pull some of them out. And apparently the zombies are not too keen on coming to the pen. They're kind of taking their time and malingering, as it were.
Like, it becomes clear over the course of the movie that zombies have the ability to learn.
Mm-hmm. And Rickles mentions, like, offhandedly, I am under the assumption he means this as a joke, in that they're afraid of what's going to happen when Dr. Frankenstein gets a hold of them. And Sarah, of course, is like, if you're right, Rickles, that means they're learning. And that's not good for us.
Yeah. But they managed to get a couple samples for Dr. Frankenstein. I know Sarah at one point goes to visit Frankenstein.
Well, what happens is they manage to get them out, but Miguel accidentally drops one of the poles that is hooked to a collar that these zombies have. How these zombies got these collars, who's to say? They could have been strapped down, had a collar put on them, and then released into the pen. Who's to say? But Rickles is almost zombie chow when Sarah manages to grab the pole and hold it back. And, of course, Steele, is kind of pissed at Miguel for dropping the pole and getting Rickles almost killed. And so he...
Those two are friends.
Because those two are friends. And so Steele threatens to kind of...
feed Miguel to
the zombies. Which Sarah just barely prevents, and this could have been prevented if Steele had let Sarah up onto the platform to hold onto the poles.
But no, they wanted Miguel, who was on edge and probably shouldn't have even been there.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah was against the idea of him joining up in the first place, but she didn't exactly have very many volunteers. So
yeah. So after this scene, Miguel gets doped up by Sarah, and we are introduced to Captain Rhodes, who from the jump is not accommodating the scientists. Ted is begging for better work conditions, and Rhodes is basically saying, no, absolutely not. I can't spare any resources. I only have 6 men left. It's me and 6 privates. There's no corporals. There's no sergeants. The major just passed away. Later on in the movie, it is explained that originally it was a group of about 14 soldiers and 5 scientists. And the scientists, they've only lost 2 scientists, while the soldiers, they've lost 5 people so far, including Major Cooper. So the odds are not really in anyone's favor right now. They're losing manpower each passing week, and it's continuing to just get a little worse over time. And Dr. Rhodes, Captain Rhodes, it says that there's going to be a big meeting, a big hullabaloo, and that
everybody has to come.
Except Miguel, because Miguel's doped up, and Rhodes is not very pleased about it. He kind of makes a very sexist joke.
Absolutely sexist. Like I said, the soldiers are oversexed.
And they're also a bit racist. They don't like Miguel. Because he has a woman. And so they're kind of jealous. And Sarah, of course, is not going to take this, of course, but that's okay.
About the only one who doesn't actually arrive at the meeting later on is Logan. And he's got his whole situation. But before the meeting, Sarah goes to visit Logan in his butcher shop, ostensibly. Where on one table he's got a zombie that is mostly disemboweled. It's still got a lot of its organs still in there, but
Logan actually kind of gives us the most insight into the zombie physiognomy. So we had Dr. Millard Rausch in Dawn, who sort of explained the basic function of the zombie, but Dr. Logan actually gives us a lot of insight into the physical aspect of the zombies. Their organs, they're not necessary anymore. The brains, the rotting process starts at the neocortex, which is where memories and speech and all of these other functions take place. But the center of the brain is the last place to be attacked. The cerebral cortex, as it were.
And that's why these zombies are able to continue moving and functioning despite very grievous injuries and, a complete lack of functionality of the rest of their body.
And we also are introduced to, he is not named yet, but there's a zombie there who he jump scares Sarah a little bit, but doesn't attack her. He's chained to the wall, and he just kind of stands there. He's not really doing anything. He's just there. Which is very interesting.
And thus we're kind of introduced to the best character in this whole movie.
Which is really sad. All the characters are...
I mean, if there's one character in this movie you're going to remember, it's Bub.
Yes, Bub is the best character in the movie.
But we'll discuss him a bit later. But I think perhaps one of the most telling moments in this scene is when Logan unveils a unveils a corpse that has most of its head removed. It's really just what's left.
It is the cerebral cortex. The head is removed. The cerebral cortex and the spinal cord is still attached to the body, and he has a bunch of electronic devices attached to the brain, and so he activates these devices which give electrical impulses to the hands and the feet and other body parts, and so Logan is just like, this is it. This is like a big breakthrough. And of course Sarah's like, no it's not. This is stuff we already know already, and you're not even proving it well.
But I think the one important thing that gets really overlooked in this, because it's never brought up again, that's Cooper on the table.
Yes. He actually replaced Cooper's corpse with that of a specimen, and then did some experiments with Cooper's body. And Sarah, in a very foreshadowing motion, is like, do you know what they'll do if they find out? And Logan, of course, is just like, they'll never find out. They'll never find out. He's not recognizable. Can you recognize him?
Admittedly, the only reason that she did realize who it was because his uniform was in pieces on the floor.
Yeah. Logan is mad.
Yeah.
Mad as a hatter.
And yet still somehow a rather sympathetic character later on. For as messed up as he is. Which is just really telling of how dour this movie is and all its characters are.
It's really sad. So then we get to the meeting, and Henry Rhodes, Captain Henry Rhodes, he asserts his authority. Like Eric Cartman would in South Park. Respect my authority.
Like at one point, Sarah just gets fed up with what's going on and starts to walk off. And then Rhodes orders Steele to shoot her.
And this is one of the few... this is one of the few moments where Steele kind of has a pet the dog moment. Where he assumes that Rhodes is joking, and so he jokingly goes, bang, you're dead.
And then Rhodes pulls a gun on him, and it's like, no, shoot her.
No, shoot her, or you're dead, motherfucker. And Steele and all the other soldiers are like, oh, fuck, he's serious. Oh, no.
Oh no. And Sarah does manage to calm the situation down by sitting back down.
And then Logan shows up.
Late.
And he talks, in the words of John, he talks Captain Rhodes silly. That's what John says later in the next scene, because he's explaining. John explains to Sarah that he won't shoot me because I'm his ride. He won't shoot Bill because Bill's an expert on electronics. He won't shoot Dr. Logan because the old doc can talk him silly.
And this scene shows it because of Logan. I really have no idea what it is he's all saying, but it leaves Rhodes confused, but not so mad that he'll take it out on him.
He manages to convince Rhodes to give them more time. Not much time, but more time, because he wants to see results, and he's underneath kind of curious to see what Logan is talking about, because Logan is saying a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense to him, and he's just like, where are you going with this? What does this mean? And Logan also tries to explain, this is on a later scene though, that Sarah is trying to research a potential cure for this. Logan is trying to find a more practical solution in how can we make these creatures do as we tell them. How can we domesticate them, essentially? Like Millard Rausch had contemplated in the last movie. If you remember in Dawn of the Dead, Millard Rausch had contemplated feeding the creatures so that we could not necessarily domesticate, but pacify them for the time being. or drop nuclear bombs on all the big cities. That was another solution that he offered. Logan is straight up like, no, we can domesticate them. They have memories. They can think. They can use tools. And he demonstrates this as the movie goes on.
Now, is this the scene where Bub gets properly introduced, or is that still a little bit later?
That's still a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah. So then we get the scene where John is explaining why he's not going to get shot, Bill's not going to get shot, and Logan's not going to get shot. But he also warned. But then he says, "As for the rest of you, y'all better start worrying." Because everyone else isn't safe. Not even the soldiers from Captain Rhodes, who is also mad as a hatter. Both the lead scientist and the commanding officer are both insane. They've lost their wits. They've lost a bunch of people. Logan is driven insane by his research. Rhodes is just an egotist who, now that he's got a whiff of power, lets it go to his head. And Rhodes, in the previous scene, also contemplates just going to the surface, taking all their ammo, and killing every single zombie. And Logan, of course, walks in doing the math, and he's like, no, we're kind of outnumbered 341,000 to 1 by my calculations, which is not good odds for humans. Nevertheless, Sarah has a bad dream. She has a bad dream. And Miguel fucking insults her for it, calling her full of shit, which, may be true, might be true.
But he has had it with the relationship and leaves.
Yeah.
They have a messy breakup.
Sarah kicks him out. He goes back to the barracks. And then Sarah goes to get some water or whatever. And Ted spots Sarah getting some medication or whatever, and then they go to Logan's room, and that's where we're introduced to Bub, and we see Dr. Logan sort of talking to Bub and handing them items, and Sarah and Fisher are very confused by this. But they also note that Bub is not attacking Dr. Logan. And what was the books? Was it Salem's Lot, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Salem's Lot by Stephen King, which I guarantee was a nod to King, specifically for their
I wouldn't be surprised. Creepshow.
Yeah, for Creepshow, for their cooperation on Creepshow.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure King would have appreciated that. Would have appreciated that nod.
And the thing is, Bub looks like he's trying to read the book.
Which it makes it possible that zombies may be able to comprehend language. Could be, potentially. He also gives Bub a straight razor, which Bub starts trying to shave with it. And then there's...
he certainly shaves, just not hair.
Yeah. And then there was also I believe, a music player.
That might be a little later in the movie, but...
Possibly. There was also a phone, which sort of gives us the biggest scene with Bub in the movie. Because Sarah and Fisher are kind of joking to themselves about, like, well, you see what's going on, this creature doesn't see him as food. And Rhodes pops in, and he's like, what are you guys laughing about? And then Logan is sort of like,
oh, hey, Rhodes.
Oh.
Come on.
Yeah, hey, everyone.
Come on in.
Come on in.
It's safe. Come on in.
Come on in. It's perfectly safe. Bub doesn't bite.
In fact, Bub salutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they hand him a phone. They give him a phone.
And Logan's like, go on, say hello to your Aunt Sally.
Hey, say hello to Aunt Alicia. Hello, Aunt Alicia. And Steele... Which, puts Rhodes and Steele and the other soldiers in, like, what the fuck is this? what the fuck is this? And then Bub salutes Rhodes, and Rhodes doesn't even bother saluting back. He's just like, he's incredulous at this. So Logan takes up the mantle of saluting back and everything. And then they hand Bub a gun.
Now, granted, Logan made sure that it was unloaded before handing it to Bub, but Bub does aim it at Rhodes and pulls the trigger.
Yeah. And so, we get to another meeting where Rhodes is just like, what the fuck is this? What is this? What even is this? You know, and it's just like, damn.
Yeah.
You know? So, Logan and them, they get... So, Logan explains that, like, hey, we can domesticate them. And it eventually, there's some back and forth, and eventually Logan convinces Rhodes to give them more time, of course. Which, okay, alright. And then we go to the next scene, and this is where Sarah and Bill run into each other, and Bill takes Sarah, because she can't sleep for whatever reason, and a bunch of the soldiers are fighting.
It should be noted that throughout the film, Sarah occasionally goes to a first aid cabinet to grab what I assume is maybe aspirin or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's basically popping pills occasionally throughout the movie.
So Bill sort of absconds with Sarah as the soldiers are fighting one another. I assume a card game broke out. I assume a children's card game broke out. And,
I mean, what else would have happened to it?
And a brawl ensued afterwards after one of them lost all their life points. None of them got sent to the Shadow Realm, though. Yet.
Card games are serious business.
Card games are serious business. Who are we to judge? So we get so we see Bill and John's sort of setup, and John and Sarah have kind of a heart-to-heart with each other, and John basically tells Sarah, I don't think too highly of what you guys are doing, because even if you guys do manage to accomplish something, who the fuck's gonna remember it when we're all dead? What's it gonna matter? Like, the world's dead. Everyone is dead. Even if you find a cure for this, everybody who has died is already dead. So what's the point? We're living in a goddamn tombstone. It's a 14-mile tombstone. And there ain't shit we can do about it. Which, Sarah, kind of takes heart to heart. Or takes to the heart. Where it's just like, it kind of makes sense what John is saying. In that nothing is going to matter. It's kind of a nihilistic viewpoint from John and Bill, but they're not wrong, because it's already the apocalypse. It's a post-apocalypse. Everyone's dead. Society has collapsed. So what if they're the only people left? What's it going to matter? John says, why don't we take the whirly-bird, go to an island, go fishing, have fun, make babies, rebuild civilization, That's something we could do. And, nobody else kind of sees his viewpoint. and this is from earlier in the movie where John says, why don't we take the plane and just go to an island somewhere and just live out the rest of our lives in peace. And Sarah, of course, chastises him, being like, you would think of that, wouldn't you? And John quips, I could do that even if this all wasn't going on. Man just wants to go on vacation.
Everyone's earned it.
And so, right here is, I think, where we'll go to the spoiler break.
Yeah, because from here on, things kind of take a shit turn.
Everything escalates from here on out in the worst way. Mm-hmm. So, what would you rate the movie?
A 7 out of 10.
I think a 7.5 is perfect for it. It's a really good film. Great special effects. Characters are not that great.
I would say that in terms of just simply the special effects, this is probably the best of the three movies.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But that kind of to be expected from the progress of time.
Because mind you, this is at the point where Tom Savini was at his height. He had done, 1985, he had already done Creepshow. He had already done Dawn of the Dead. He did 4 of the Friday the 13th already. This is the height of his work as a special effects actor. And he does not mince it. Because this is arguably his best work as a special effects artist. All around. Part 4, you could make an argument for that, but a lot of that did end up getting censored. Outside of the finale, which you and I remember, of course, with Jason basically getting hacked apart.
Dude, spoilers. Not everybody's seen our podcast on that.
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, for a movie called The Final Chapter, it didn't seem very final to me.
What did at the time?
Sure. And and then a couple of years later after this, he does the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead, which we will get to someday. So yeah, the special effects, probably the best thing about this movie. The music's pretty good in a dissonant sort of way.
Yeah.
Any comments you have?
Not without spoiling things.
Bub's our favorite character, of course.
Hands down.
We already said that.
He's the purest character in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
He did no wrong. Technically.
He didn't do anything wrong, of course. I don't know what you're talking about. Favorite scenes, we'll get to that down the road.
Yep.
Anything you didn't like about the movie? Because there's a little bit to criticize the movie for.
Yeah.
It's a straightforward movie, but its pacing is kind of off at times. It has moments where it can be really slow, and then, the last 20 minutes...
I could almost argue that the slow pace could be evocative of how everybody is feeling in this situation, because there's not a lot happening, but also not a whole lot getting done.
You know what it is? Here's what I think it is. Because Dawn had a lot of comedic moments, a lot of light-hearted moments. Night was one big mystery. The whole pull of the film was nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows anything, and these people are just fighting with one another. Not necessarily any funny moments, but there's intrigue there. In this, it's just depressing. It's dark. Everybody's at each other's throats. Everybody knows how the zombies work at this point. Logan's fucking mad as a hatter. Rhodes is insane. And everybody just kind of doesn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there. And at least in a movie like The Thing, which did inspire Day of the Dead quite a bit in terms of its theming, for distrust of each other for once, or how people will react in crises. It does not have the strong characters that The Thing does. There's not a MacReady who has his funny moments. There's no Childs. There's no if it's all the same to you, I wouldn't like to spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch, or any sort of funny lines like that. There's attempts at humors, but it's more
gallows.
Yeah, it's more gallows and sardonic humor. The movie is very depressing. And I think that's one thing that you could criticize the movie for in comparison to its previous films. Night has a very strong hook. Dawn has a lot of lighthearted moments. It can be a funny movie at times. It has a pulpy feel to it with the special effects, the lighting, the acting, all of that. Day, it's just a bunch of people who hate each other, don't want to be there, and death is around every corner. They don't like it. No, sir. I want my refund. Any recommendations this week?
I've actually been reading Junji Ito's autobiography, Uncanny: The Origins of Fear, and I'm about halfway through it, but it is a pretty interesting read.
Go on.
It starts off with talking about like his childhood to adulthood, his inspirations, like how he grew up, his time as a dental technician, which is actually fascinating because he figured that would be a more lucrative career than manga artist, because at the time it was kind of a booming business, but by the time he actually got hired on as a dental technician, the bottom fell out, so he got really lucky to submit a work to... He got really lucky when he decided to create Tomie and submit that, and that launched his career, and I'm at a point where he's starting to explain some of the both inspirations and ideations behind some of his more well-known earlier stuff. Like, I'm currently reading through some of the stuff about Uzumaki and afterwards, but it's an incredibly interesting read. I don't know how to keep going on with this with only me here, because somebody had to take a piss. I don't even know if he can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. He can hear me, folks. He can hear me.
Anything else you want to add?
Especially reading the stuff about Tomie has really gotten me to want to reread the stuff, knowing what some of his thought processes and ideas were for those.
Nice.
Also, quick aside, his talking about the story Face Stealer, he outright says that he didn't understand fully how copyright worked, and is glad that none of the companies that he used the imagery of for the climax of that story ever came to get their cut. Because if you've ever read it, it's full of a bunch of masks of copyrighted characters. It's absolutely kind of funny.
Yeah. I don't really have any recommendations this week, so
That's like 2 in a row.
yeah, I know. I'm running out of recommendations. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, then I suppose we better get back to the movie.
I guess.
Because everything goes tits up from here on out. What happens? Well, 2 people die, for one. One gets bit in the neck by a zombie that escapes its harnesses. Thanks, Miguel.
Technically, that wasn't Miguel's fault. The collar broke. Miguel actually had a good grip on the reins, but Steele, who was in charge of the specimen roundup, doesn't see it that way.
Yeah.
Because one of his buddies gets at,
Yep.
and another gets severely bitten to the point where Steele has to end his life to keep him from...
Miller gets bitten in the neck, so he's infected now, and then Johnson is shot to death by Miller because Miller accidentally shoots his gun off. So both are dead now. Miguel tries to kill the zombie that broke loose,
only to get bit.
Yep, and so Miguel runs away. Sarah kills the zombie, chases after Miguel, and all hell breaks loose.
They do get to John and... Who's the other guy? John
and McDermott.
John and McDermott's place, and Sarah uses a machete and basically a torch to amputate Miguel's arm and cauterize the wound. But this whole situation has has left the soldiers in a bad mood, and they are convinced out of just shooting everybody up on the proviso that now Miguel is part of their group. They have to look after him and off him when he turns. It's no longer our responsibility as soldiers. You're on your own.
And Steele still just wants to kill them and be done with it, but Rhodes calls him off. And so Sarah finally breaks down because she's kind of been holding it in this entire time, and this whole experience has been really traumatic.
And the whole thing is that it wasn't actually Miguel's fault. The zombie's collar broke. It was just a really bad luck situation that causes the dominoes to start falling. And it doesn't help that while Rhodes is watching... Is it Rhodes or is it Ted that stumbles upon Logan teaching Bub how to use a cassette player?
It's Bill... It's Bill and Sarah.
And Sarah.
Because they decide... So Bill, Sarah, and John decide it might be time for us to possibly get the fuck out of here.
So they go to Logan's lab to get supplies, and they listen to one of his audio logs, which does not paint a very pleasant picture of what's going on. I mean, Logan has a head hooked up to electrodes, and it is still moving around.
They go to get supplies and everything, and they find Miller's head, which is
I didn't even realize it was Miller.
Yep, one of the soldiers' heads, and then they follow Logan because they spot Logan in the hallway, and they follow him, and Logan, we find out, has been feeding Bub like the flesh of the dead in order to civilize him.
And that dead is the dead soldiers that Logan has basically been keeping in a freezer.
And Rhodes, of course, corners them, and he discovers this, and he shoots. He just shoots Logan dead. So Logan is dead. He drags everyone else. He drags Sarah, Ted, and Bill to where John is, and they force John to come with them. They shoot Ted dead. Shoot him in the head. He's dead. And then they force Bill McDermott and Sarah into the pen where all the zombies
after discarding their weapons.
Yep. So they're on their own now. And now there's 4 soldiers left. There's Rhodes, there's Torres, there's Steele, and there's Rickles. 4 soldiers left. And they want John to fly the helicopter so they can leave. They want to leave.
Now, the whole confrontation between the soldiers and the civilians is overheard by Miguel, who, after everybody leaves, decides to do something incredibly desperate, and one would argue stupid, but brave at the same time.
Yes.
He decides to go topside and use himself to lure the zombies onto the elevator platform.
He's suicidal, essentially. He decides to unalive himself. For you TikTok people.
I have never watched TikTok, and I had heard the term unalive before.
Yes.
Because I watched an episode of Spectacular Spider-Man. Pretty sure it was Spectacular Spider-Man. It was the episode with Deadpool in it.
Okay.
And he uses that term because it's the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
So they stole that from Marvel.
So now... And, of course, the other soldiers hear this. And
they hear the elevator being used.
Yes, and Steele and Rickles go to check everything out.
And find the controls in the bunker have been destroyed.
Now, John finally, he has an opportunity. He knocks out Torres, he knocks out Rhodes, and he steals all their weapons. All of their weapons. So now they have nothing.
So then he goes to the
into the pen
to try and find Sarah and McDermott.
And the reason that they're going deeper into the pen is McDermott mentions that there's an old
missile silo.
Yeah, there's an old missile silo at the end of one of the caverns that they can escape through. And so they're going that way. So now we have the 4 soldiers and Miguel topside, who gets eaten alive.
But also uses the controls for the elevator to start lowering the platform.
Yep.
Miguel lets the zombies into the bunker.
And so Steele and Torres, they make it to where the others are, or Rhodes and Torres. And what does Rhodes do when he sees the elevator coming down with a bunch of zombies? Well, he leaves his soldiers to die, of course.
He hightails it out of there.
Because he's a coward. A dirty coward. And Steele calls him out on this for being a dirty, cowardly bastard. And then, here it comes. The finale, of course. And
The zombies are swarming the bunker, and the soldiers are far from ill-prepared to deal with it.
yes.
Like, they passed the point of being ill-prepared long ago.
So, what happens? Well, Torres gets his head pulled off.
Absolutely
Literally.
torn off. I love the little detail where the entire time he's screaming, but as his head is being removed, his voice gets higher pitched.
His vocal cords get stretched.
Before finally he's silenced by the severing.
Yes.
Like, that is a fantastic touch.
With his head silently screaming. In effect. And then Rickles gets torn apart, and he kind of goes out like a man.
He tries shooting them dead, but even he knows that it's a futile situation.
Yep. And so he's dead. Steele, because Rhodes locked the entrance to the base, and Steele shoots the entrance open, and then he gets bit while trying to shoot Bub from another room. And so Steele, he does the cross, the crucifix, and he shoots himself in the head. So he's dead. And then John, Sarah, and McDermott, they make it to the silo. John finally caught up to them. They managed to kill a bunch of zombies. They're on the way up, and John is out of ammo as he's grabbed by a zombie on the ladder.
But McDermott's got him covered.
And after all, John needs to take them to the promised land. And so they're on their way up, and we are left with Rhodes and Bub.
And Bub has a gun, and it's not unloaded this time.
Because Bub escaped. Bub managed to escape from his confinement, and he finds Dr. Logan's dead body, and we get Bub having a moment of
Mourning.
And sorrow, and then he sees the gun on the ground, and he knows what he must do. Revenge! Vengeance! It shall be his! And he shoots Rhodes in the back, and Rhodes loses his ammo because he had an M16, and he dropped the clips because he didn't get them in, the magazines, as they were. And Rhodes gets shot twice more, and he's struggling to one of the doors that's unlocked, and he opens it up, and what does he find? A bunch of zombies.
And so he, in desperation, turns back towards Bub, who shoots him one final time, leaving him to the horde, giving him a soldier's farewell with a salute.
And so Rhodes gets eviscerated.
Choke on them!
Choke
on them! And that's my favorite scene.
And now he's dead. He's dead, folks! Yippee! This guy died!
Like I hinted at before, this scene was one that I was familiar with before even seeing the movie, because I had seen a behind-the-scenes kind of documentary showing how it was done, and was super impressed with it. Mm-hmm. Also, I was surprised they got away with showing it on, like, just normal, I think, primetime TV, but it was on cable, so...
Yeah, who cares?
And it was a show about special effects, so...
Yep. And so, John, Sarah, and McDermott, they make it to the helicopter, and Sarah is grabbed by a bunch of hands, but she awakens. And it is a flash forward, of course, because she was actually just having a bad dream with that scene.
And she pulls a sheet of paper out of her bag and marks off the 4th of November.
Yes. And what is it? John and McDermott and Sarah have escaped to an island. And John and McDermott are fishing, enjoying themselves, bathing in the sun, and that's how the movie ends. We end with a good ending! We've got a good ending, people!
The most dour film in the entire franchise is the first one that ends on a genuinely hopeful note.
Yes.
Like, Dawn of the Dead ends on an ambiguously hopeful note, and Night of the Living Dead ends on a hopeful note if you weren't one of the main characters that the movie was focusing on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, our movie ends. And, of course, 7.5 out of 10. And that's the movie.
And like I said, my favorite scene was Rhodes' climax.
I still think my favorite death is Torres, just because it's sufficiently gruesome without being
That
over
is
the
fair,
top.
but like the whole climax is pretty gruesome.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Rickles gets fingers bitten off. He gets an eye socket. Like,
Exposed.
yeah,
Like, yeah, no, it's some absolutely brutal effects work on display, and I love it. But I feel like the reason why Rhodes' death is my favorite moment is because he, out of all the characters, is the one who most deserves to die.
he had it coming.
He had it coming the most. And he dies like a bitch, but despite his cowardice, he is defiant to the bitter end.
Yeah. Which is true to his character. He's a defiant coward who's okay with dying. And he knows he's fucked anyways, so.
But he's also too much of a coward to take his own life.
That's true. That's true.
Granted, he didn't have any weaponry to do that.
Yeah, he did lose his ammo, so he couldn't have killed himself even if he wanted to. Although he could have let Bob just kill him.
And in a way, Bub did.
Yeah.
Just in the slowest, most gruesome way he could possibly have.
Like, I have genuine questions. Like, what was Rhodes' plan here? After locking his compatriots out, what was his plan? What did he think was going to happen? He would just lock himself in and survive inside the bunker forever?
I mean, one could argue that he just panicked and had no plan after that.
I mean, he didn't have a plan anyways. You could argue Cooper at least maybe had a plan where, you know, he would continue the experiments, he would keep his men in line, and he would try to keep things orderly and organized, even if he was a hard-headed bastard, according to Fisher. But
yeah, it seemed like for as much as people didn't care for Cooper, they cared for him more. They cared about him more than they did Rhodes.
yeah, Rhodes sucks.
But we don't even really know what happened to Cooper outside of posthumous.
Yeah, he dies, and that's all we know about him.
And that's really all we need to know, because it's just a case of, well, the one bit of stability in this whole thing has gone before we even arrive on the scene.
Yeah.
And at this and for the remainder of the movie, it's just a powder keg waiting to explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Which brings this Living Dead trilogy to an end for the time being. Maybe we'll cover some of the later ones. I know we definitely want to cover the remake of Night. I don't know how we feel about the other movies, remake or otherwise.
No. Maybe Dawn remake, but Day remake we're never doing. It's that bad. Alrighty, folks. I suppose we better bid you adieu.
Until next time, I'm ProtoMet.
I'm Barry.
See ya.
Bye.